Why, hello and welcome everybody. It is Pohx again. So today's video is going to be showcasing, not really showcasing, just going over a patch note that just recently hit for new skill development in Act 4. And I really want to talk about not just the hype around it, but actually how important and how thankful I am that GGG is introducing something like this. So let's date back before we actually start this. The biggest problems with Melee, I guess in Path of Exile, is a couple things that come up. Is A, you don't really get a significant defensive boost aside from your skill tree in terms of playing Melee, such as, let's take a game for example, in Diablo 3, playing a Melee class, you get a 30% damage mitigation just for playing that Melee class. Path of Exile isn't really like that, and cannot really be incorporated like that. But they are taking some stuff, which I'll explain here, what they're doing, which is really neat. But anyway, let me go on and continue with what I was saying. So Melee doesn't really get an indirect buff per se in Path of Exile, because you could be ranged and use a shield, you could be melee and use a shield, you could be melee and use a two-hander. You know, there's nothing really you get. But at the same time, since you're melee, you're up in front, so unless you're freezing or whatnot, or you're keeping up permanent and mortal call, which is Fizz immunity, you're going to be taking excessive damage just because you're melee when you could just be ranged. Does that make sense? I'm not saying melee is bad, I'm just saying melee has significant downsides for that specific reason. Furthermore, a lot of melee builds do not have the clear speed as a ranged would, which is also true, but melee synergizes pretty well in party if they can tank. I see melees more so in 3-4-man parties, 2-man parties, so there's the range DPS and the melee for usually single target or just to scout ahead. Furthermore, another thing about melee, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, I was going to say melee needs gear to scale in most cases, unless they're elemental, and casters just need gem levels. So usually at the start of a league, a caster can start mapping with, 2.4k, 2.5k HP. Melee, you don't really want to dare enter maps unless you're minimum 3k HP. This is just my personal beliefs and experiences with the game. Anyway, though, let's just read about this now. Hi everyone, Rory here again. This week I'm going to reveal another of our upcoming skills, Vigilant Strike, and talk about how the skill is developed. With this skill, players will gain access to a new buff, Fortify. Alright. We're making a number of changes to improve melee survivability and build diversity. I've never read this yet. During discussions about these changes, I suggested adding a buff called Fortify that reduced damage taken by 25%. Unlike other buffs, this would only be obtainable by attacking an enemy in melee. The advantage of having a buff rather than a skill or keystone is that we could give melee characters a few options for obtaining the buff if they wanted it. We're introducing a new support gem and the new passive mechanic that grant the buff by performing melee hits, but we also wanted an active skill as the easy way to quickly add Fortify on a new character. We started brainstorming simple skills that could be used to grant Fortify. We discussed adding a small dash attack that melee characters could use when first engaging enemies. After discussing and theory crafting, we were hard-pressed to come up with a movement skill that would also behave nicely if you're already in melee because of client-server location synchronization, aka desync. It was also pointed out that most builds would be better off supporting an existing movement skill with the Fortify support gem. With this realization, we had found a question that would shape the rest of the design discussion. Why would you sometimes choose to use this over other support gems? We discussed options, but in the end, the simplest solution was the most popular, damage. We made the skill the highest single hit damage of any weapon skill at the cost of having a short cooldown. We made the adjustments after testing the skill, like having endurance charges override the cooldown, making the skill unable to be evaded to make the buff more reliable. Having it require a melee weapon as the damage was astronomical with unarmed builds. Don't worry, unarmed builds have got other toys coming. During this process, Ivan was working under the efforts for the skill. Here are the skill and buff effects that he created, giving the skill a radiant theme. So it's a really obvious icon, which is really good. And let's read more. This is the hit. It looks really nice. Once we had the effects and a working prototype, then came the surprisingly difficult parts of skill development, naming the skill after feedback and discussion. I hope you've all enjoyed the Vigilant Strike. I'll leave you today with a screenshot. Okay, so I want to talk about why this is very important. So we've got, for people who don't know, there's 3 charges in Path of Exile, as of now. There's Frenzy, There is endurance, and there are power. Each one symbolizes something. Endurance charges give you 4% physical mitigation and 4% elemental resistance per charge. Frenzy gives you 5% attack speed and 5% casting speed, and power charges give you 50% critical strike chance. Cold Snap has a cooldown that can be bypassed by expending a power charge. Frenzy has a cooldown that can be... I think Frenzy has a cooldown. No, Frenzy doesn't. How do you get rid of Frenzy charges? I don't remember. Flicker Strike, sorry, excuse me. Flicker Strike. Flicker Strike has a cooldown that can be bypassed by using Frenzy charges. And now they're adding Vigilant Strike, which attacks the enemy with a powerful melee strike. You gain the Fortify buff, granting damage reduction. The cooldown can be bypassed by expending an endurance charge. Requires a melee weapon. Deals 165% of base damage, which is extremely high. Cannot be evaded. 100% chance to fortify on melee hit. Now, before anything, I want to explain something that's really cool about this. Now, a lot of people are going to want to make a build around, oh my god, 165%. They see it, they want to make a build, they're set, oh my god, I'm going to 5-link, I'm going to 6-link the skill. I don't necessarily think that's the right way to go. I'm not saying that's the wrong way to go, but this is what I mean. They just gave you a skill that buffs your survivability. Don't use all your endurance charges to gain that survivability. Use both of them. So, here's an example. You would have Vigilant Strike on a 4-link or a 5-link. Often when we play melees, we use a 2-hander, and we have a 5-link open for our single target. Well, Vigilant Strike can just be that single target now. That's it. So you would just basically swap out your Heavy Strike with a Vigilant Strike. So you would AoE whatever it is that you normally do, and then whenever you... So you'd Ground Slam, and then you get to the rare, and you just ping it with a Vigilant Strike, and it would fall over in 1 to 2 hits. That's the goal here. If you're in party play, you should not be spamming Vigilant Strike. The way I see this buff is you want to keep the buff up at all times. And this is, I'm going to explain to something why you want to keep it up at all times. This skill, if you read it, it cannot be evaded. Meaning you don't need to be RT, you don't have to be crit, you can just be something in the middle, which there doesn't exist. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is it has 100% reliability. Because the skill cannot be evaded, if you use the attack will give you the buff. And that is very important. Consistency is very important in PoE, because what kills you in PoE is when your buff falls off for 1 second, you know, your endurance charges fall off from a nullifier, or you drop this for 1 second, or you get cursed for 1 second by elemental weak. That's what kills you. Because this skill can technically have 100% uptime. Now, I don't know what the duration of the buff is, but because it's not hard to get endurance charges, you press Enduring Cry. If you're in a party, you're going to get anywhere from 3 to 7 charges with just 1. You put Echo, you have max charges, and you just hit once to get your buff. This skill can have 100% uptime, pretty much guaranteed, which is very, very good. So I'm really happy to see that. And like I said, I would still have single target open as an option. I wouldn't just use Vigilant Strike and just drop all your single target, because here's the thing. Unless you're going crit, right, and you're going to go fight like Dominus or Palace Dominus, you're probably not going to kill him in like 4 to 5 Vigilant Strikes, let's be honest. And if there's no mobs around and you use Echo Enduring Cry, you're only getting 2 charges. So I would still say have a 4-link open, like a 4-link heavy or a 4-link double strike, or even put it on your 5-link and just put Vigilant Strike on your 4-link. So for example, some things that could happen, which I still don't know of, is say for example, Vigilant Strike, increased duration, multi-strike. It's tagged as a duration. Putting increased duration on it would increase the duration of your Fortify. Multi-strike is an insane damaging skill, for example, and then put melee fizz on it. You know, like, be creative with it. It may just be that when you multi-strike, since you hit 3 times, it's going to refresh, and then the last hit will hit, it'll refresh again, and then you get, I don't know how long, because you have increased duration on it, and then you go back to regular spamming your heavy strike, and then whenever you need to Vigilant Strike, you do it again to keep your buff up. You know, not everything is always about the damage, because there's gonna come a point where you just fall over and die, because if you lose your buffs, and you don't want to get cocky like that. So this is the way I would kind of see this, but I like this. I like that they address the fact that melee needed, and this is a big buff, guys. This is 25% mitigation, 20 reduced damage taken by 25%. That's an astronomical value in PoE. Like, that really is a lot. That is a ton of mitigation. But anyway, yep, that's pretty much what I wanted to go over. I want you guys to tell me what you think about the skill. Tell me if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. You know, it's important that we have this feedback between me and you guys. But anyway, that's pretty much about it. Remember, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, you can check me streaming at twitch.tv/Pohx daily. So hope you guys have a wonderful day. What is a die? Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Hope to see you guys all tomorrow. And take care, everybody. Have a good one.